So welcome back, everybody. Thought I'd bring you all along for a little garden episode here. I've got to work quickly because we have rain moving in from like a tropical low or something that's sitting off of Florida. And we keep getting what looks like bands whipping in all day long. So there'll be a little bit of rain, then there'll be sunshine, then there'll be a little rain. Here we go. But I have a lot of things that are ready in the garden, and it's time to put up some vegetables. I try to show this one time a year to show the process to inspire people to grow your own food. You never know when you might need to depend on it, or if you're just looking for some healthy alternatives. There is something so fun about growing your own food. So before this rain gets here, I'm gonna try to dig up some potatoes that are ready, and then we have squash, zucchini, and I have a ton of beans to pick if the rain will let me do it. So let's start digging up these potatoes. These are some that we literally just had sitting in the pantry, and I just took some of the little potatoes off the end, threw them in the garden. I didn't even go buy seed potatoes. So I'm not expecting a whole lot here. This is last year's potatoes. I have also found that potatoes don't particularly grow well in a rich compost bed like this. I've always had much better luck growing potatoes in soil. I don't think potatoes particularly care for the high nitrogen content of a compost bed. Now with that said, just about everything else in the garden loves high nitrogen. Well, most things. These are just like little baby russet potatoes, but what I normally grow is red new potatoes, and we should have some out here. Well, there's actually quite a few potatoes off of that one plant right there, and I see my friend the ants have started eating these. All right, decent little potatoes. Throw a little butter and salt, pepper on that. I'll eat it. All right, so here is my friend, the red new potatoes, one of my favorite garden vegetables, although we don't really eat a lot of potatoes, so I try not to grow many. Oh, these look beautiful too. Might wind up with quite a few more potatoes than I was realizing. Oh, sadly, that one got a rotten spot in it, and it was big and beautiful. So look at these gorgeous red new potatoes. So I put out a garden safe ant killer, I guess is what we'll call it this year, called Come and Get It. It was recommended by some of you viewers, and I can say it really did seem to work. Normally I lose the majority of my potatoes every year to fire ants. They just come in here and take over. And even though I'm starting to see some now, they just showed up because I've been checking on them. I should have did another application of that ant killer, but all these potatoes are actually looking really good. All right, so moisture is the enemy of your potatoes. So before I store them, all right, get back, buddy. I like to pour them out on the ground, run them around in the grass, knock some of the dirt off, and let them dry just a little bit. Although that's gonna be a little difficult with the rain coming. So yes, a lot of people tend to have other methods for growing potatoes in baskets and buckets and some things that I think I'm gonna try in the future, so I can get back to using that other garden bed for other things. And I know you can be a lot more productive than this, but keep in mind, we really just don't eat potatoes a whole lot. Not that we don't like them, it's just, well, one of the crops that we try not to include constantly in our diet because it's not the world's best vegetable for you. So normally I do this on a somewhat sunny day, let these dry for just a little bit, although rolling in the grass really works. You want to keep a good layer of dirt on them. Do not wash them if you're going to store them. And then I'll go put these in a cardboard box and then keep them in an air conditioner room, whether it's pantry in the house or out here in the shop, and that controls the moisture and the heat, and they will actually keep for months just right there either on newspapers or in a cardboard box. What you think about it? You want to eat one, don't you? You want me to throw one, don't you? Get out of my face, boy. All right, so I just checked the radar. Looks like I've got a few minutes before that storm's here. The one that's dropping the lightning staying north of me. So let's do the back-breaking work of picking beans. Oh my goodness, this is just never ending. But beans taste so good. But a few plants, oh, you can be picking on them wild because they can produce so much. So what I'm picking here is Blue Lake bush beans. We love these. They don't require a trellis. They can grow right in the spot where they are. That's why they're called a bush bean. They support themselves. And if you'll pick them about this size, I find they don't have any strings. But if you let them get too big, well, they wind up a little stringy. We'll just snap them right in half, snap the ends off, bag them up, and cook them up later in the year. Especially with them little potatoes you just seen. Throw them in with the beans when you cook it. Maybe throw a little ham hock or some bacon in there. Oh, it's so good. Oh my goodness, I bet I'm gonna pick 50 pods, bean pods off this one plant. They have just loaded up. Wow. So all this bending over is why I think I do not like beans that much, even though they're delicious. So that bed you just seen me get the potatoes out of that's raised up over here behind me, I think next year that's when I'm gonna plant my beans. So it's quite a bit higher and less stressful on my back, staying bent over here for 30 plus minutes picking beans out. I guess before this storm hits, and assuming y'all can hear me with all this wind, I have struggled with corn this year. I've been planting corn 4 times. I have an invasive Eurasian dove that's been coming in and pulling the little new corn plant up, eating the seeds off the bottom. So my corn crop looks about as bad as I think I've ever seen it. However, the stalks that did make it, I mean, look, 1 ear of corn, 2 ear of corn, 3 ear of corn. So we're definitely gonna be making some corn, just not the typical probably 140, 150 years I'm used to. We had quite a cool spring at times, and I think it caused everything to kind of stunt the growth. My pepper plants are taking forever, but we're starting to get little bell peppers on now. Big thanks to Mr. Mikey, who just sent me in some Bonnie tomato plants. I have a few here, some in here. So thank you, that was a generous gift. My okra's taking its sweet time. I just thinned it out again, and I think it again due to the cold. Okra loves heat. We've already been picking tomatoes. We've got quite a few more putting on, different varieties here, large ones, small ones, all the way down to little cherry tomatoes in there. Squash and zucchini always does well, other than, well, the dove did pull up some of the seeds, and I am missing a few plants right here. It got like right in the 90s last week, got really hot, so my cucumbers already looking a little burnt up. I need to start putting shade cloth over them. Over here is some Anastasia beans that a viewer sent in, Crystal, and my goodness, y'all, they're just everywhere in there. Actually, I need y'all's input on what to do with all these beans, because this would be my first time ever growing a non-green bean, something that I'm supposed to, I'm assuming, dry out. That's how you typically get those beans. So if you grow those, let me know what you do to harvest them. Always plant me a few cantaloupes. You've already seen in the beginning of the video. We have some putting on there. I pretty much completely lost this bed thanks to the doves. They dug up every seed about 4 different times. So I'm gonna plant some late season corn over in this bed that Shane and Crystal sent me in. And y'all, did you see the grapes at the beginning of the video? There is just thousands upon thousands of grapes developing and putting on. They're just everywhere in here. Muscadine grapes. We're gonna wind up with so many this year. It's just gonna be insane. You got little pods everywhere, and then the grapes are starting to develop themselves. All right, so not bad for, well, a 1 afternoon picking here. Cucumbers are just starting to put on. This is actually my first bean picking. I'll probably pick that many again in 2 days, and then it'll reach a point where I'm picking every single day. And we're trying something new this year around zucchini. So our seed provider, Survival Garden Seeds, that was in one of the packs I got this year. We thought we'd try it, and we like them. They grow really, really well, and they taste just like your regular zucchini. So let me show you how we put all this up. I just got me a brand new little wheel around cart for my grinder and my vacuum sealer, and it works perfect. And I've got some new bags too. A lot of y'all been asking about my V4 chamber sealer out here. Still in love with it, still working perfect. A ton of y'all purchased them based on the review that I did, and a lot of y'all still email me and constantly ask me what type of bags you're using. Well, I found some bulk bags on Amazon. They're way cheaper than your standard vacuum seal bags, which is great. And one side's already sealed for you, so you have half the amount of work to do. You don't have to make your own bags, they're ready to go. And you can buy them in 500 packs for cheap. So if you're interested, they have all different sizes, but this size works great for me. It's either like a 10 by 13 or 11 by 13, I can't quite remember. But the bottom and side's already sealed, so all you have to do is just put all your materials right in here, throw it in the machine, let it do its thing, it seals one side, and you're off to the races. No cutting bags, no making bags, and if you'll buy in bulk like I did, they're very affordable. So I'll put a link down in the description for the V4 chamber sealer and for these bags that I found on Amazon if you're interested. All right, so the process is very simple. We get so much squash and zucchini, we give it away constantly, and we freeze a lot of it. It's just our main preservation method. Now we do some canning as well. We're thinking about experimenting some this year. Tiffany makes an excellent, what I call a squash soup. It's hard to explain, but I'm not a big fan of suits. It tastes so good, and I think we may try canning some of that and putting it up on the shelf. But as far as our squash and zucchini goes, we just cut it in thin chips. We bag it, we vacuum seal it, we freeze it. Most people are under the belief that you cannot freeze squash and zucchini because it loses its texture, and that's very true. A lot of things do whenever you freeze it. However, the way we prepare our squash and zucchini later down the road, it does not matter. The two main ways that we prepare squash and zucchini is one, casseroles where you're going to cook it down anyways, and sauteing it, which again we do make the squash and zucchini soup, as I call it, as well. So if you're prepared to make food down the road that's going to require cooking down the vegetable anyways, it doesn't matter that it loses its crispiness, so to speak, whenever you freeze it. It tends to kind of come out a bit soggy. That's okay if you're going to saute it down anyways or cook it in those casseroles. And by the way, her squash and zucchini casserole is awesome. She made it one time, we put it on the channel. I'll try to remember to include that video at the end of this one. I really wish I had a dehydrator, but they're just way out of our budget right now, and freezing has worked so well for us. The beans, the corn, everything else we put up tends to freeze very well. It's typically the squash and zucchini that loses a lot of that texture, and we just have to find different ways to cook it. So what I typically do is pull me out a zucchini. Again, this is the new round ones that we've been experimenting with this year. I like them just fine. I'm probably going to grow them again next year. We'll wash off all the compost and other stuff from the garden, put a few up here, and I like to cut and layer it into the bowl. And the reason I like to layer it is because I like to bag it in layers. We like to mix it all up. Now we will use some squash separately, some zucchini separately, and we also eat this fresh right now as well. We'll grill it. Occasionally we'll fry it, although we're not big on fried foods. And we'll use just some fresh ones as we can. And again, we like to give a lot away as well. This stuff just produces so well. All right, so then I'll cut the ends off. I don't like those pieces. There's not much waste there anyways. Now I like taking old fish fillet now, if that's the country boy in me. I'm just used to working with them. And we'll just cut little chips out. I don't like them any bigger than that right there. About that thickness and size. And as soon as they start getting a little bigger, like these, just cut them right in half. Then I like to come right behind that with the squash. That's that layer I was talking about. And that way, as I'm grabbing in here, picking all this stuff up, it tends to kind of mix up a little, and then I'll put it straight in my vacuum bags. Let me show you what one of these round ones look like, because I'm sure you're curious about that. I mean, it looks like a green pumpkin. By the way, these ends that we cut off like this, we go out and lay these in our chicken coop, in the chicken pens. They love them. They'll peck and clean them right out down to, well, the rinds, what I call it, even though these aren't watermelons. Here's the inside. It does have your typical zucchini seeds, but they aren't bad. And then I'll just thin slice these. As the garden starts producing a lot more of these, I'll actually bring out our mandolin, which is the slicer with the razor blade on it that you can go up and down and cut these off. But that piece right there will actually cook down quite well in a pan. All right, so next I like to grab one of these pre-made bags and write the year on it. And that's because we've made so many vegetables last year, and this happens every year, that we're still eating some 2022 vegetables. So I like to rotate out my freezer. This is a good time to do it. Things get lost in deep freezers, so we'll pull it from one bag to the next and start storing all the 23 stuff, eating it later, finish up our 2022 stuff. Now, well, just get your hands dirty. These bags tend to hold just the right amount for a big pan of sauteed vegetables. And they're a little on the lower end for like a 9x13 casserole, but by the time we add the eggs and the cheese and everything else to the casserole, they work. And the good thing about vacuum sealers is you could always pull out another bag, grab a little out of it, pop it right in the vacuum sealer, which I pretty much always leave plugged in over here now. Seal the bag right up, toss it right back in the freezer. All right, and then it goes right into the chamber sealer. And y'all, this is no sponsored video. This is no me promoting a bunch of stuff. I don't care. Just get you a chamber sealer. I fought for years with one of those Game Savers and Vac Saver type ones that you get from the big box store with the cheap bags. nothing compared to a chamber sealer. This actually sucks the air and atmosphere out of the chamber itself with a heavy-duty vacuum pump, so that means it does not suck the contents out of your bag. So I could literally put a steak in one of these bags along with a bunch of marinades, stick it in here. I can put soups in this, and because it's not actually pulling air out of the bag, it's pulling it out of the chamber, it seals the bag while there is negative pressure in the chamber. Then it dumps back in atmospheric pressure, and that's what seals the bag, because technically, well, the air pressure has been removed out of there. A little confusing to explain, but trust me, it doesn't suck anything out of the bag, and it does not make a mess. Watch this. So I've got mine set for a decent amount of vacuum. It runs about 25 to 30 seconds. All that's fully adjustable on this thing. I've got it set up to seal for 2.2 seconds. People are always asking me my times on these, and a 3-second cool down. All right, it just sealed it. Now it's cooling, and it's about to dump. See that? It just put all the air, the atmospheric pressure, right back in. All right, and then I always mention this because there's so much truth in it. I tell everybody this right here is, well, better than money in the bank. Steaks, chickens, vegetables, everything you think of. And this is just one of the several freezers that we have. So when this is completely filled up, I don't know, 800,000 pounds of food in this one. Another freezer refrigerator right beside you that will typically fill up with wild game and fish and everything else. And then another deep freezer in the house. And this is why I'm always about backup sources, generators, solar, anything else to protect my investment, protect my food. A lot of people will prep or do preparedness and buy all the shelf food that sits forever. Well, I'd rather have steaks, chickens, and other things in here, and some good tasting vegetables out of the garden, if you know what I mean. All right, so take a look at that. A nice large stainless bowl full of clean and snapped beans, ready for bagging. Now you could can these and put them up, but they freeze very well and boil up nicely. We've had no issues doing this for years. So really, that's way too many for the size pot that we cook. So that's the cool thing about these chamber sealer bags. I'll just take a little out of each, put it in this one, and this really won't have enough in it for a full meal. So the next time I pick some beans, I'll just cut the top off of this that's sealed up, throw some in it real quick, and just reseal it, put it right back in the freezer. And there we are. All right, so this is the way my days are gonna roll for the next month to 2 months, most likely. The garden comes in full force. It's an everyday chore, no doubt about that, and then it just kind of vanishes until you plant a fall garden, assuming that you plant one. So I highly encourage people start somewhere, even if it's one small raised bed or some 5-gallon buckets or some hydroponics, anything like that. It is such a rewarding feeling to be able to provide your own food, to know exactly what goes in it, to know that it's safe, healthy, and again, just the satisfaction of watching the hard work that you put in develop something, you know, from seed to fork, as we often say. You plant the seed, you nourish it, you take care of it, you watch it grow something, and then it's on your dinner table a few months down the road for you to enjoy. It's a pretty cool process. We'll catch you on the next video. Thanks for watching.